Streaming. 3, 2, 1. Okay, we're ready to go.
Okay, thanks, John.
Yes, sir.
Okay, welcome to the 2021 organizational meeting of the Common Council of the City of River Falls. This is the annual organizational meeting for the Common Council, and it's not a regular meeting. The public is invited to observe, but there's not any opportunity for public comments at tonight's meeting. So the first thing we'll do is say the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the
United States of America,
and
and
to the
republic for which it stands,
one
one
nation,
nation,
under God, indivisible, liberty and
justice for all.
Hey, Christy, can we please have a roll call?
Yes. Bierstead.
Here.
Farrow.
Here.
Downing.
Here.
Morissette.
Here.
Miller.
Here.
Odine. Plunkett.
Here.
Thank you.
Thanks, Christy. And just to make a note that all the oaths have been taken for newly elected and re-elected. In District 1, we had Sean Downing. In District 2, we had Nick Caro. In District 3, we had Alyssa Miller. And Alderperson at large was Diane Odine. So we'll move on from there. And just, I don't know if this is the right place to do it or not, but I just want to take a quick moment. You know, with everything that's going on in our region and all the stuff that's happened today and that's going on now, today the city administrator, Mr. Scott Simpson, sent out a note, an update to all of the city staff. And reading it and talking with Mr. Simpson, I really couldn't have come up with any better way to express the thoughts that he expressed in this update. So I hope it's okay with everybody that I read this to the city and to the council. Today, we learned that the jury found Derek Chauvin guilty of the murder of George Floyd. You will hear from many people over the course of the next few days about what they think this verdict says about policing, racism, and society as a whole. It does not seem like we are living in a big, it does seem like we are living in a big moment in our region and in our country. I am sure others will have wiser things to say than I, but I do want to share my initial thoughts with you. Local government is at the front line of many of the issues that are seen as causes or symptoms of some of our biggest challenges moving forward, be it housing security, dealing with substance abuse and its impacts, economic security, criminal justice, or social and racial justice and equity. As part of the city, we have a role to both embrace the fact that many people in our society don't feel the same confidence and security we do in our police department, but also accept that a department is different and our community can be different also. We know the names and faces of our police officers and their families. I urge you all to know that you can both be disgusted by the outcome of police intervention and also support and embrace our local police officers, who I believe are very vital to the success of our very community. It is also important to recognize that members of our own community right here in River Falls may be experiencing the community differently than we are. And we need to work toward a day where all members of our community can have the same confidence in and resulting security that many of us feel when interacting with city employees and services, including police services. It is also vital to our community and communities everywhere that we find a way forward on the issues I mentioned above. We are not perfect, but we have a lot to be proud of here in River Falls. Thank you, everyone, for being part of the work we will do together to keep making this a distinct, vibrant, and safe community moving forward. I just thought those were perfect thoughts for what's going on, and I hope Mr. Simpson's okay that I shared those with everybody. So let's move on. First up is the election of the Common Council officers by the Common Council. So the first one up will be, I will take a motion for president. Or no, I'm sorry. So for president, do I appoint him and you guys vote on him, right? Scott?
I don't know which Scott you're referring to, but I think it's nomination.
Is it
Nomination from the
nomination
floor.
for? Okay, I
Yes.
don't know. Every year I screw this up.
No, that's all right.
Mr. Mayor, it's confusing, but just for everybody's, as we go through the rest of the agenda, if you see by common council, then that would be a nomination from the council by
Okay.
the council. And if it says
Okay.
like by comptroller, that would be an appointment by the
They would do it.
comptroller. Yeah.
Okay. Okay, go ahead. Sorry, Miss O'Dean.
I nominate Scott Simpson for council president.
Scott, who?
Excuse me, Morissette.
Second.
May he forgive me.
Yep. Okay, we got first and second. Are there any other nominations? Christie, we have first and second for Mr. Morissette as president.
Okay, first by Odine, a second by Bierstead. The vote is for Mr. Morissette as president. We'll start the vote with Mr. Plunkett.
Aye.
Odine,
Aye.
Miller. Carroll,
Aye.
Morissette,
Aye.
Downing.
Aye.
Bierstead.
Aye.
Thank you.
Okay, next I'll take nominations for comptroller.
Mr. Mayor, I nominate Diane Odine to be comptroller.
Second.
Is there any other nominations? Christie, I have a first and second for Miss O'Dean to be comptroller.
First by Morissette, a second by Bierstead. For Ms. Odine as comptroller, we'll start the vote with Ms. Odine.
Aye.
Downing.
Aye.
Morissette.
Aye.
Carroll.
Aye.
Miller.
Aye.
Bierstead.
Aye.
Plunkett.
Aye.
Thank you.
Okay, now it's up to Miss O'Dean to appoint her deputy comptroller.
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to appoint Todd Bierstead as deputy comptroller.
Okay. Got that, Christie?
I have that. Thank you.
Okay. Next, I will appoint Miss O'Dean as the parliamentarian. And next we'll move on to, I'll take nominations for a council member to be on the planning commission.
Mr. Mayor, I nominate Diane Odine to be on the plan commission.
Second.
Are there any other nominations for planning commission? Christie, I have first and a second for Miss O'Dean on planning commission.
First by Morissette, a second by Bierstead for Ms. Odine to be on plan commission. We'll start the vote with Mr. Carroll.
Aye.
Plunkett. Bierstead.
Aye.
Morissette.
Aye.
Downing.
Aye.
Odine.
Aye.
Miller.
Aye.
Thank you.
Okay, next I'll hand out appointments for the council members. For the sorry about that. For the Historic Preservation Commission, I am appointing Mr. Nick Caro. For the Library Board, it'll be Miss Miller. For the Park and Rec Advisory Board, it'll be Mr. Downing. For the Design Review Committee, it will be Mr. Plunkett. For the Utility Advisory Board, will be Mr. Morissette. For the Housing Authority, be Mr. Bierstead. And to the River Falls Creates Public Art, I'm appointing myself. Okay, now move on to appointments of other city officials. So,
Excuse me, Mr.
Mr.
Mayor,
Mayor?
I think
yeah.
we need to
Oh,
confirm
I'm sorry.
that.
Go ahead. Yep. Sorry about
I
that.
make a motion, we confirm the mayor's appointments.
Christie, we have first and a second for the appointments.
First by Morissette, a second by Bierstead. We'll start the vote with Mr. Morissette.
Aye.
Miller. Plunkett. Carroll.
Aye.
Odine.
Aye.
Bierstead.
Aye.
Downing.
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you, Christie. Okay, now appointing other city officials. I'm appointing Attorney Chris Gerhardt as a city attorney, Mike Noreen as a city forester, and Pierce and St. Croix County Health Departments as the health officers with your guys' confirmation.
We approve the mayor's appointments.
Second.
Christie, we have a first and a second on the appointments of the other city officials.
I have a first by Odine, a second by Morissette. We'll start the vote with Miller.
Mr. Mayor, it looks like Mr. Plunkett might have a question.
Oh, yeah, Mr. Plunkett, go ahead. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Mr.
I'd like
Plunkett.
some discussion on the appointments of the health officers, if we could.
Yeah, go ahead.
I with having, I think we just sort of experienced a real stress test of having multiple health officers, and I think that, in my opinion, we might want to look at having a single health officer for the city, so that we don't have some of the things that I saw as problematic in our recent stress test.
Scott, Mr. Simpson, I know we had talked about this before. Can we do that? Or would that be a possibility for us?
I think it is a possibility to appoint a single health officer. I admit, we're not exactly sure what the consequence of that is related to the health. In this case, both of these health officers have some independent authority through their county. I think it would be more than symbolic if you just selected one. In other words, that would give me direction to say, this is the person you primarily want me to work with on issues where the city's health officer is making decisions or recommendations. But I admit that we had a lot of discussion, or not discussion, we had a lot of research on some of this in the past. And we were in a situation, as we often are in two counties, where it's not a very clear line of how everything is going to happen. Attorney Gerhardt might have some added thoughts on that. But I think the short answer, I believe, is yes, we can kind of pick a health officer, and it certainly doesn't even have to be the two county health, either of the two county healths. We, for a while, had a local medical doctor that was our health officer. And so there's a variety of things the health officer does that are not related to pandemics, although we haven't really, haven't seen much but the pandemic. But there's unfit for habitation and other issues that are more local ordinance related, that this health officer would perform. And in that case, I kind of shop my needed help to both of them and say, which of you can help on this issue? They usually default to, is it south of Division Street or north of Division Street? So I'd say the practical impact for non-pandemic related things is that if we have a home issue or a health issue in St. Croix County, we typically would contact them to help us on the code enforcement side. If it's south, we would work with them, with Pierce County. But I think there is a policy option, one that we haven't laid out for you in a memo, that would be either, you could do either, both, or something entirely different. I believe you have those three options. There was a letter that we received, I believe might have been 2 organization meetings ago, from Pierce County Health Officer, who kind of indicated that they had concerns about us doing an MD for this, and that there was some thought that didn't align with the county's health officer ordinances. Chris, do you recall that, or you probably weren't privy to that letter? Attorney Gerhart.
Yeah, I don't recall that letter. As far as appointing a single health officer rather than two, that's certainly allowable under the city's ordinances. The issue we ran into with COVID-19 is that the city doesn't have its own health department. And because of that, both Pierce County and St. Croix County health departments retain some jurisdiction over the parts of the city that are in their respective counties, regardless of who's designated as a health officer.
Okay.
And I'll just add one more thing. And then the council, I guess if they have other questions, we can try to elaborate if we can. There is an option under state law that allows the city to request, and it's only in, I'm not sure why, but Attorney Gerhart, I'm not sure if you researched this one for me or if the previous attorney did. In counties that have selected the county administrator form of government, which St. Croix County has and Pierce County has not, the St. Croix County administrator can delegate the health officer authority in a county in a city that crosses two counties to the other county. So I made that request of Administrator Pat Thompson, and he denied that request, but that would have made the Pierce County health officer the health officer for the entire city of River Falls, including the portion that was in St. Croix County. But he declined my request to do so, my administrative request to do so. But that is another option. The council could say, not only do we want Pierce County health officer to be our city health officer, but you want me to formally request that the current county administrator, Ken Witt, would appoint, would essentially delegate the health authority of St. Croix County within the city of River Falls to the Pierce County health officer. And again, took some research even to find that kind of scenario in the statutes, but that exists too. So I wouldn't suggest that the current system is broken, and I wouldn't suggest that the current system is ideal either. It requires quite a bit of cooperation, discussion, coordination, and I suspect if we ever had to go to court, maybe Attorney Gerhart could add. I mean, if we had to go to court on an order that was issued by, say, the Pierce County health officer on our behalf under our unfit for habitation ordinance or something, then the real question is, if we got sued, would they make an argument that we should have had both health officers sign the letter? So we'll have some issues to deal with if we ever go to that. But fortunately, we haven't had to use any orders like that. We haven't ordered anybody out of their home or anything like that with the health official that I can recall in the last 6-7 years or so.
And
Go ahead. Go ahead, Chris.
Looking back at a memo we drafted back in May, the primary purpose of the city's health officer is really to enforce Chapter 8. Removing someone from their home that's dangerous or uninhabitable. And if the city were to do that, that health officer, whoever it is, would be acting pursuant to the authority under the city's statutes, not under county ordinances. So it could be, Pierce County enforcing a city ordinance, as the city's health officer in St. Croix County. That is possible. That's something the council wish to pursue.
So what is the council's interest in pursuing something different?
I remember the discussion when this started.
Yep.
And I was similar to Mr. Plunkett's concerns. I think I was pretty adamant that we're playing to two masters, and what happens when the two masters don't agree.
Yep.
And the reassurance that I got was, oh, no, we're going to act in unison, almost like 9 county health departments making decisions in one giant move. That didn't happen. So I too have some frustration with the two county health directors, but I do have to defer to Attorney Gerhart and the city administrator for the practicality of the application of law when it comes to that. Can Pierce County dictate what happens in St. Croix County, anything north of Division, and what happens if we disagree, maybe it's not COVID, maybe it's something else, but there's some sort of a ruling that comes out and we disagree with the Pierce County decision, down the road. I think we've got just a whole mess, if you will, when we start to open up the Pandora's box. So while I think Mr. Simpson kind of said it, it's not ideal, but it isn't terrible either. I don't know. I haven't heard any good solutions, but I sure would be willing to listen. So I guess my answer is, I don't know.
Yeah. So Scott,
Anybody got any better ideas?
Would it be easier for us to say, have you guys researched a little bit between you and Mr. Gerhart and lay out our options and the consequences of those options?
If, Mr. Mayor, if you're asking me if you need to do anything and you want to take some time for more options, I think that's not a problem. If I remember how how all laws work on appointments, Attorney Gerhart, you've got a current appointment, so until you make a new appointment, the old appointment stands. So essentially we're doing this kind of out of ceremony. You could say, you could exclude 10C from your appointments tonight and direct staff to give you some more information. I don't think that'd be difficult to pull together. I don't know that it's going to be any clearer, though. I mean, we may find, though, that it is better to just have one county officer, especially if we're focused mostly on Chapter 8. I don't believe if we appointed Pierce County Health Officer or Pierce County Health Department as our health officer, that if there was a Chapter 8 issue in St. Croix County, they would say they wouldn't work with us on it. I suspect they would be fine doing that, but I haven't verified that. Okay. So maybe that alone is enough reason to set it aside for now, and setting it aside has the effect of keeping it the way it is. If there's urgency by the council to change it, then you could just go ahead and make a amendment to this. You could make a different motion, and that'd be in order. If there's no urgency, you could just take it off. And that would signal to staff you want us to look into it. And if you're indifferent, you could keep 10C together and we move on and talk about it again next year.
Yep.
Maybe it would be good to revisit the May 7th memo that was issued.
So is the council okay with taking? Go ahead, Ms. O'Dean.
Oh, I was going to say, Mr. Mayor, I believe I was the one who moved to approve your appointments. I will move to amend my motion by moving to approve the appointments for the city attorney and city forester.
Was I the second?
I think you were.
I think you are.
Yes.
Okay. I second the change in motion.
Okay.
Then we need to vote in the change.
Yep. So is there any other discussion on the amendment? Yep. Go ahead, Sean.
I agree with the city administrator. Like, as far as consistency goes, I think that's what our city should be looking for.
Anybody else?
You would give us a sense of direction.
Oh, sorry.
Thank you.
Nope. I agree. Okay, so Christie, you have a first and a second on the amendment to just A and B.
First by Odine, a second by Morissette to approve the appointments for city attorney and city forester. We'll start the vote with Miller.
Aye.
Plunkett. Bierstead.
Aye.
Morissette.
Aye.
Carroll.
Aye.
Downing.
Aye.
Odine.
Aye.
Thank you.
Okay, so that was the amendment. Now we got to vote on the original motion.
I think, Mr. Mayor, you probably,
Are we okay?
it was voted as amended. Unless there's
Okay.
disagreement on what the council is voting on, you can move on to the next item.
Okay, move on to resolution designating public depositories for public monies held by the city of River Falls. I'll take a motion on this.
Mr. Mayor, I move approval of resolution designated public depositories for public monies held by the city of River Falls.
Second.
First and second, discussion?
Mr. Mayor, I have a conflict as my employer is named in the resolution, so I will be abstaining.
Okay. Anybody else have any comments or questions on this? Christie, we have a first and a second on number 11, resolution designating public depositories for public monies.
A first by Downing, a second by Bierstead to approve the depositories. We'll start the vote with Mr. Bierstead.
Aye.
Downing.
Aye.
Plunkett.
It didn't make it.
Odine.
Aye.
Carroll.
Aye.
Miller.
Aye.
Thank you.
Thanks, Christie. Okay, next we're gonna have a presentation by City Attorney Mr. Gerhardt on open meeting laws.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Today you have your annual update on open meetings and ethics. So bear with me a moment and I will share my screen. Are we up and running?
If you want to go to the
Yep.
top and change your display settings. Next one, there you go. Perfect. Ta-da.
Does that work?
Excellent.
Perfect. All right. So to start with the basic overview of the open meetings law, all city council meetings need to be open to the public. And the council otherwise determines its rules of procedure, and the city of River Falls has adopted Robert's Rules of Order with respect to its parliamentary procedure. The general policy of Wisconsin's open meetings law is that the public is entitled to the fullest and most complete information regarding the affairs of government as is compatible with the conduct of governmental business. All meetings of state and local governmental bodies need to be held in public places, accessible to the public, and open to all citizens at all times unless otherwise expressly provided by law. And the otherwise provided by law provision relates to closed session meetings, which we'll discuss very briefly later on. But the general takeaway here is the governing body, the council, is going to be discussing public business. It needs to do so at a meeting open to the public, which is what we are doing right now. So one of the questions that sometimes comes up is, what's a governmental body? So it includes the city council, but it also includes boards, commissions, committees, quasi-governmental corporations, and formally constituted subunits. So there's no specific requirements with respect to what that might be, but it can include citizen committees, building committees, plan commissions, zoning boards of appeals, pretty much anything, any body that has an impact on government is most likely going to be a governmental body, and its meetings need to be open to the public. And so what is a meeting? A meeting is a convening of members of a governmental body for the purpose of exercising their responsibilities, authority, power, or duties delegated to or vested in the body. So 1/2 or more of the members of the governmental body are present. The meeting is presumed to be for the purpose of exercising the responsibilities, authority, power, or duties delegated to the body, but it does not include chance gathering. So if you're all at a public event and you all happen to bump into each other, that's not a meeting. But it does sometimes occur where you need to notice a meeting if you're at another governmental meeting, a meeting at a, say, for example, a county meeting, and there's going to be a quorum of the city council present. That might be something we need to notice, and something where the council members need to be careful not to discuss public business. So at open meetings, generally speaking, there is room for citizen comments where they can discuss something that's not on the agenda and bring it to the council's attention. There can be very brief discussion about public comment, but my suggestion is always to defer debate on that matter. And if the council deems it worthy of debate, you'll just need to put it on the agenda for an upcoming meeting. And that's something you can remind the public when they want to discuss something not on the agenda as well. So the one exception to the open meetings law is for closed session purposes. Staff works with myself to properly notice those. And the key takeaway, if there's something in closed session, make sure you don't talk about it with anyone else. And that's a common scenario that happens is someone wants to talk to a council member about a topic that was discussed in closed session. The easiest way to resolve that is just to say no, because you can't talk about it. If someone does have a legitimate request for information, I'll direct them to the city administrator or another appropriate official, Clerk White, and we can respond to their public records request. It is really critical that we don't discuss closed session topics outside of closed session. Doing so also suggests that the topic, the purpose for closed session wasn't appropriate. Main takeaway of the open meetings law is make sure you're discussing city business in a public setting at an open meeting, and otherwise avoid talking about city business unless you're discussing, specific items with city staff. So the city of River Falls also has a code, an ethics code, and this is in addition to the state code on ethics and conflicts. So I think it's important to at least, for a couple minutes just to read through these because they are important and they do pop up from time to time. So you have a code provision that discusses responsibility of public officers. So public officials and employees are agents of public purpose and hold office for the benefit of the public. You need to uphold the Constitution of the United States and the state, be impartial in carrying out the laws, to observe in your official acts the highest standards of morality, and to discharge faithfully the duties of your office regardless of personal considerations. Recognize that public interest must be the prime concern. Conduct in both their official and private affairs should be above reproach, so as to foster respect for all government. And this is really an important one. Treat everyone equally. Be honest in your dealings, and it's not going to be an issue with that provision. Dedicated service is also a provision in the city's code. Be loyal to the objectives expressed by the electorate and your constituents, and make sure you don't exceed your authority. Don't promise what you can't deliver, more or less is what's required by that. Don't use public property for a private purpose. And with respect to the private citizens, make sure you, again, treat everyone fairly. You can't give special consideration to anyone, even if they're a family member or a friend. You want to help them out. Everyone needs to be treated equally under the city's ethics code. And we do have provisions relating to conflicts of interest as well. This is one where you probably get the most questions. So we'll read this one. It says, no official or employee, whether paid or unpaid, shall engage in any business or transaction, nor shall such official or employee act in regard to financial or other personal interest, direct or indirect, when such actions are incompatible with the proper discharge of his or her official duties, or when such actions impair his or her independence or judgment on the performance of his or her official duties. And, the state conflicts law often deals with conflicts or benefits that might go to immediate family members, like a spouse or a child. This is broader. And I think the takeaway here is, if you think there might be a conflict, if you're uncomfortable voting on something, you can always abstain. If you've got questions, you can, address them to City Administrator Simpson or myself, and we can help you out with any conflicts issues that you might have. Likewise, if you have a personal interest in legislation, meaning, a specific interest, not the city is rezoning some property in a broad sense and you're subject to it, but a very personal interest, you do need to disclose that, particularly if it's financial in nature. And there are penalties for violations of the city's ethics code, including if you're an employee, removal from employment or censure. Moving to the state ethics code, it really closely mirrors the city's code. It applies to elected officials. It applies to officials holding appointive office, like the city administrator or the city attorney. The state ethics code does prohibit certain conduct. You cannot use your position to obtain financial gain or anything of substantial value for your private benefit or the benefit of your immediate family or the organization with which you are associated. You can't solicit or accept from any person anything of value if it could reasonably expected to influence your vote, actions, or judgments, or be considered as a reward for any official action or inaction. You also can't take any official action substantially affecting a matter in which you or a member of your immediate family or an organization in which you're associated has a substantial financial interest. And finally, it is prohibited to use your office or position in a way that produces or assists in the production of a substantial benefit for you or a family member or the organization with which you're associated. Now, immediate family is defined under the statutes, means your spouse, relative by marriage, lineal descent or adoption, who receives support directly or indirectly, more than one half of his or her support from the individual or from whom the individual receives directly or indirectly more than one half of his or her support. So there has to be a financial tie, not just a related tie, although I tend to err on the side of caution, and if there is something that relates to an immediate family member, I typically suggest that a council member abstain from discussing that matter. So another question that occasionally arises is, what's something of value? Receiving a bumper sticker, likely not to be substantial value, but it's not limited to financial compensation. If you're offered dinner or a drink or sporting event tickets, that's going to be something that's substantial value and not nominal or token. And if you receive that in exchange for a vote or for making some decision or taking some action, that would be contrary to Wisconsin's ethics code. So again, reiterating, you can't use public funds for personal, family, or business purposes. And there are state penalties for violations of the state ethics code. State also has a conflicts of interest provision. There are some limited exceptions. The primary one is contracts that you're privately interested in that do not involve receipts and disbursements, aggregating more than $15,000 in a year. So that's sort of the de minimis exception. Again, there are criminal penalties for violating the conflicts of interest provisions. And the scenario that most common comes up is, you're approached by a family friend, distant relation, maybe someone even more closely related to you, and they ask you to vote a certain way because it's going to help them out. My suggestion there is to always disclose any potential conflicts. And remember that you're representing your constituents in the city, and to always put the interests of the city above any personal interest you might have. But again, if you have questions on that, you're uncomfortable voting, or you're not sure if you can vote, feel free to reach out to myself or City Administrator Simpson. If there are any questions, I can take them now. Otherwise, feel free to reach out.
Attorney Gerhardt, the one question that I've heard repeatedly from council members is, doesn't everything that I do as a city council member affect me if I'm a homeowner because I have an interest in my property? Do you want to just, I know I didn't get you prepared for that, but do you want to speak to the fact that just because you own property doesn't mean you can't vote on something that impacts, broadly properties like yours in the city?
Correct. Every city council member by definition has to be a resident of the city of River Falls. And anytime you are taking any type of policy action or adopting an ordinance, of course, there's going to be some impact on you personally. But those broad impacts, amending a traffic ordinance or a zoning ordinance or approving a construction contract, while they may affect you, they're not directed at you. And so those topics of broad applicability, which is going to be 99% of what you're going to be voting on as your time as a council member, you are not conflicted out of just because there is some impact on you because you happen to live in or own property in the city of River Falls.
Mr. Gerhardt, can you unshare your computer so we could see everybody?
Absolutely. Let's see here.
Thanks.
There we go.
Okay, is there any questions for Mr. Gerhardt? No? Okay. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Next, we'll move on to setting a date for the board of review on May 25th at 6:15 p.m., where we will meet to adjourn until September 23rd at 4 p.m. So I'm assuming we're voting on this,
No,
Mr. Simpson? Or are we just talking about it?
You have to you're officially setting it, so you have to announce it
Okay.
like that. You could vote on
Okay.
it if you'd like to, but I think,
No, that's fine. As long as it's set, that was good enough.
yes.
Okay. Okay, next, we'll move into closed session per Wisconsin State Statute 19.85, 1E for the following purposes: deliberating or negotiating the purchasing of public properties, the investing of public funds, or conducting other specified public business whenever competitive or bargaining reasons require a closed session. To wit, this is for site redevelopment. So I need a motion for this.
Mr. Mayor, I make a motion, we move into closed session.
I need a second.
Second.
Okay, Christie, we have first and a second for moving into closed session.
First by Downing, a second by Bierstead. We'll start the vote with Mr. Plunkett.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes.
point of clarification, transparency for the public. I would add to the to wit, it's site redevelopment on South Main Street.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay.
No, it wasn't on your agenda. I'm
No, I
adding
see
that
that.
as additional information to just be clarify under that state statute E.
Okay. Thank you. Go ahead, Christie.
I think Mr. Plunkett has a question.
Oh, Mr. Plunkett?
The question sort of relates to what Scott just brought up, and I had just reviewed prior to the meeting the Attorney General's recommendation on the open meeting law, and that sort of brought back up that question that I had on that, which is that if the notice that was issued in our meeting notice is sufficient for the public to be informed about the topic of that closed session. And I think I just closed that window that I had it up. But to paraphrase the wording that they used in that opinion from the AG, it was that noticing regarding disciplinary procedures or for an employment consideration case was sufficient. And I guess as long as we have the attorney here, I bring that back to him if the notice that we've given here, redevelopment, is going to be specific enough for the public to be noticed in accordance with that law.
Thank you, Councilmember Plunkett. I believe it is, my preference, of course, as Administrator Simpson pointed out, would be to have some general location for where the redevelopment is occurring. But the notice does give the public that we're discussing redevelopment for competitive reasons. And I'm more comfortable moving forward with this because we're not taking action on this closed session item tonight. I believe that'll be at a future meeting. Is that correct, City Administrator Simpson?
That's correct. There's no action plan this evening.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Gerhart.
Welcome.
Anybody else have anything? Okay, Christie, we have first and second. Go into closed session.
Okay, we'll start the vote with Mr. Plunkett.
I'm going to go nay on this one.
Dean,
Aye.
Miller,
Aye.
Carol,
Aye.
Morissette,
Aye.
Downing,
Aye.
Bierstead.
Aye.
Thank you.
Thanks, Christie. Okay, we're in
Mr. Mayor-
closed session.
Mr. Mayor, I think you're going to want Attorney Gerhart to make determination if you're going to go into closed session, given the vote.
Oh, Mr.
to-
Gerhart, is there a problem with that?
No, it doesn't need to be a unanimous vote. We
Okay.
can proceed to go into closed session.
Thank you. So we are in closed session.
Okay, give me a minute, please. All right, so now we're going to stop recording.